Hi, it's T with Teaquilts, and it is February 27th, and we are live tonight. We will be talking about our favorite rotary cutting supplies or ones that you find useful. So let me pull this up on my cell phone. Hair is sticking up. So I got 13 of you already here, went up to 16. So thank you all so much for coming back every week to do the live chats with me. Just waiting. I think I only came in a couple of minutes early. It is saying it's let me see. Okay. So I'm back, but it will probably take a few minutes for it to pop up on the online side of this since I am always a few minutes behind. Let's see. Okay. I'm hoping that everybody can see that I'm back now. And cut my fan on. I'm hot already. All these lights. Let's see. In the chat room tonight, we have Miss Queen Thompson. She says, hello, I know I'm early, but I am here. Thank you so much for coming in and waiting on me. She came in at 6:30. She says, when you come on, my lunch be over. Sorry, I wish I could be with everyone. We start at 7 p.m. On Wednesdays. On other days, when I do live premieres, I may do those starting at 6:30. June Hansen is here. She says, hi, Miss T and everyone. I'm trying to quilt while I wait. And she was here a few minutes early. We got Christine. She says, hi, T and everyone. Christine from Pennsylvania. Hi, welcome back. Mary Smith says, hi, T and everyone from Cole, Brooklyn. Having a nice hot cup of tea while waiting. Yes, I was trying to figure out a drink. I did get some water, but I drank it already, and now I wish I had more. My brother is here. He says, hey, sis, I'm here. Hello. Diane 57 is here. She says hi. Margaret Knox says hi to everyone. Linda DeVito says, finally made it on time. Welcome from Rockaway, New Jersey. That is so hard to say. Kathy Mitchell says, your hair is cute. Thank you so much. Linda Short says, hi, T. I finally made it live. So excited to be here. Hi, Linda. Welcome to the live chat. Laura Plymere says, hello, everyone. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it right. Francine is here. She says, hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Francesca Alfino says, hello to everyone. Mary Smith says, oh, no, I'm frozen. It was me. it takes about 30 to 45 seconds for you all to realize that I'm frozen, because I'm still talking, and then I look up and I go, okay, I'm not moving. So I'm hoping that this will work tonight. Joan Elkins is here. She says hi, T. Hi, Joan. Wind Sprinter is here. Says hello, T, and everyone from Maryland. Mary Smith, you're not doing anything wrong. It was me this time. I don't know why it happened about the freezing. Susan Glenn is here. She says greetings from Cincinnati. Hi, Miss T. Hi, Susan. Welcome to the live chat. And Diane is saying hi to everyone. I think that was Diane. Maybe it's somebody else. Hold on. That was Sandra Weston saying hi, T, and everyone. Pat Moffitt is here, says good evening, everyone. Judy Smith says hi from North Carolina. And Bonita Nan says hello, Miss T, and everyone. Hi, Bonita. So we're just going to jump right in, because I have a feeling that we are not going to be on here long if my system is already freezing at the 30-second mark. I did see we had one more person come in. That was Sandra Butterball. She says hello, everyone from Northeast Ohio. So talking about our favorite rotary cutting tools, or some of the things that you want to share. So if you have anything you want to share, please post them in the comment section when I get to that portion. We're going to start off with our rotary cutting mats, because you can't use a rotary cutter without a mat. You can use it without a ruler, but you can't use it without a mat. So we're going to start out with what is some of your favorite mats, and if you want, you can put why, because there are so many different brands of everything out. I think for the most part, all rotary cutting mats are acceptable for you, so there's not much there. But I think sometimes size and whether it's a rotating one makes a big difference. So I'm just going to slide back. I'm not going to show you every mat, but I do like to have different mats for different things. I'm just going to show you this square mat, which is an OFA rotating mat. Trying to make sure it's going to read right. And I'm not so much as talking about the rotating right now, but I'm talking about the fact that it was one of the first mats out. It has a dark green background, and then the other side of the real, this is not the right kind of mat, but the other mat has a backside that was solid. So if you wanted to use lines, you could use lines, and if you didn't want to use lines, you could turn it onto the backside and not have any lines. I personally don't cut using the lines on my mat unless it's something that's bigger than any ruler that I have. So I tend to use my ruler for my measurements and not my actual mat lines. What I like about, I like having different sizes of mats. So if I'm using something where I want to do some squaring up, I may use I think it's like 6 by 7 inch mat. It's a very small mat if I'm working with miniature pieces or just squaring up half square triangles. And then I also like to use rotating mats for when I'm squaring up my quilt blocks. And what's nice about them, which is going to be difficult for me to do in the air because it'll probably fall apart, and it did come apart, is that then you can rotate it around. And of course this would be flat on a desk, so you could see it rotate a whole lot better. But any of your rotating mats, and I do like the square rotating mats over the circle rotating mats. The square takes up more space, but that also means that I can put a larger block on here and square up. Whereas on my Brooklyn revolvers, which I do love those, I love the rotating base because they are built like a Lazy Susan. But if I have a 12-inch square, I can't get it onto that circle because all of the corners won't sit on that circle. But I do use the Brooklyn one at my workstation for like when I'm doing like crumb piecing and things like that, where I just want to trim off edges. And then I use this in my actual rotary cutting area. And then they also have the 15-inch square as well as the 12. So I have both of those in my actual rotary cutting area. One other mat I like to talk about, and not necessarily the Arteza mats. I do like this mat because of the color. And sometimes you just need to be able to see the edge of a fabric print, and I find that when I have green fabrics or dark fabrics, I can hardly see the edge of the fabric pieces that I'm cutting, and on the light mats it makes it easier for me to see. And I've noticed that on mats that are yellow and pink as well. But I just wanted to give you some inputs into the different types of mats and what their intention might be. So if you're working on small miniature things, you may want to use a smaller mat. So you're going to hear this over and over tonight about using the size of products that's conducive to what you are actually cutting. So that's going to be real critical tonight, especially when I get into the actual rulers. So let me go and see in the chat, what are some of your favorite mats and companies? And I did forget one. I do have a bigger rotary cutting mat on my long arm frame. I did not buy the mat that was marketed for the long arm machine. I just bought a longer mat, and I think it's about 72 inches. Let me see, maybe not. It's 55 inches of measurements, and then I probably got 2 more inches on each side that are margins. But I use that because it goes on top of one of my big boards. But I did not purchase the long arm mat because I didn't know where I was going to store it whenever I was doing a panto, so it didn't make sense to me. But that's the mat that I have there. So let me go back and check. Let's see. I can't remember. I know I did Sandra, Pat, Bonita, and Sandra. And then Diane says that she used the Ofa mats, and Matilda. June says, I used the Ofa for mat. Blade 45, no turner yet. Vicky Lemire is here. She says, hello. Hi, Vicky. Bonita says, I have the Hobby Lobby brand rotary mat, but rarely use it. I just purchased a pink rotary mat from Hobby Lobby, and I haven't used it yet. I have a feeling that it's not going to be good when I try it, and that's why I haven't been gung-ho about using it. So we shall see. I'm hoping it works though. Peggy O'Connor is here. She says, hi TN everyone. Hey Peggy. Honor Safar says, sorry that I'm late. No problem. Just share your products with us, especially if you got something unique. Bonita says, I have a green, pink, blue, and yellow mats. Yes. Laura says, I love the rotating mats I have. What brand are they, Laura, if you don't mind? Gwen Sprinter says, I use the products you've highlighted, but because I have chronic neck pain, I use AccuQuilt cutters and dies. Exactly. And we're going to probably do a section on that. I know a lot of people are not going to be able to participate in that, but it would be interesting to see what people's favorite dies are from AccuQuilt. That would be cool. Or any of the die cutting systems. And we can even use electronic cutters as well. Francine says, when should you toss a mat, and any recommendations on recycling older ones? As long as a mat is cutting, if you're not getting any skip marks, then I would continue to use a mat. I have not had to throw away any mats other than one mat that I cracked, and then when I cracked it, I just cut it down into smaller pieces. My husband has a pair of scissors in his tools that can cut through basically anything, and I just cut the mat up. You can also clean your mat, so if you feel like your mats are not doing very well, you can use your bathtub and just use some mild soap, and then once you wash it with soap and rinse it out, you just want to make sure that you lay it flat to dry. but you can clean your mats as well. So I haven't had to pitch any yet. We got Remo JS says, hi T from Bowie, Maryland. Welcome to the chat. Mary says, I have 3 sizes of OFA mats. One came with a miniature set. I bought OFAs because it's the same brand as the cutter, so I thought they would be more accurate together. A lot of people use that analogy, especially when buying their rulers. Laura says that she has the small Fiskars rotating mat and the 17-inch one from OFA. I asked her about what brands of her rotating mats. Bonita Nan says, I have Greenman Precision mat set 36 by 24, 24 by 18, and Better Days 8 by 11. So nice, good sizes. Orna says, I bought the largest mat from Walmart. It is made by Fiskars. It is great. Thank you for sharing that, because a lot of people can get to Walmart. Susan says, that's how I clean mine. I use white vinegar also about every couple of months. Depends on how much I've used it. Remo says, I have 3 different size mats and different sizes of rotaries. I use the smaller ones when I'm in the hospital. Bonita says, I'm not really partial to any mat. All brands I use work well. And that's kind of where I am. I'm not really partial to any brand. Just as long as they get the job done, I'm okay. I haven't had one where I've cut and it went clear through the mat. So rotary mats are not as critical as some of the other things you might have in your supplies. But I think all of the brands tend to work well, because once it was made, it was just a matter of just copycatting the ideas. Linda says, I have the same rotary cutting mats as you in many sizes of OFA. I like using the back side without lines, 18 by 24. And it doesn't seem to cut as deep. Sorry for the skip. That's okay. Bonita says, Amazon is my best friend, so I order the mats from there. That's a good idea too for people that say they're not close to quilt shops or Joann's. Francine says, I haven't tossed any yet, but I do have one with the pressing surface on the other side that's curling. Yeah, and I have had probably 1 or 2 that I purchased like with the mat on the other side that I was using for like if I went to retreats or travel, but I never really did cut on it. I just mostly used it as a pressing mat. So I never really experienced if it would work and how long it would have a life, because I never really used it on both sides. So that's a good idea too. Thanks for sharing that, Francine. Pamela Tabor says, I'm late. Hi, T and everyone. And then Claire Piera, I'm assuming, says, hi all. Hi, Claire. Welcome to the chat. So now we're going to go to rotary cutting rulers, and then we'll go into the actual rotary cutters last. So we all know that you've got your big rulers. They first came out being 6 by 24 inches. And then I do love those sizes. And then they came out with 6.5 by 24. And then they came out with 8.5 by 24. And I do have rulers of all sizes. Again, that's one of those areas where I have not had to replace anything. I do find that I have different areas in my house where I cut, because I do paper crafting, I do sewing, so I'm cutting at my sewing machine, and then I also have an actual cutting station, and then I also have a 4th area, which is my travel for cutting. So I set up my bag to have various rulers, so whenever I need to go on a retreat or travel, I've got stuff that's already set, rotary cutter, mat, ruler, so I don't have to worry about leaving any of that kind of stuff at home. So I'm always having the big ruler with me at all times. What I want to talk about again is when you're cutting, to cut to the appropriate size. And I will go through some categories and give you some different ruler companies, but I'm one of those people, I'll use whatever ruler is available. I'm one of those people, it doesn't really matter to me. I think most of them are made to line up. I think the most important thing is that you need to get your line on the edge in order to get an accurate cut. And then I find most of my rulers will cut the same for me. I'm not saying that's for everybody. So what I just want to talk about is you can also get your 6.5 by 12.5 or in that area ruler. This happens to be a Creative Grids ruler. It is one of my favorite brands, and it is because of all of the circle things that you see. They're actually built in little sandpaper marks, and they're on the underside of the ruler, and it helps to keep your rulers from slipping. That is a very great technique. I do like it because it is a light color ruler with black lines. You can tend to see everything easily. So that's one of my favorites, and one of my favorite sizes, especially for cutting down scraps. However, sometimes I may have a piece of scrap that's longer than 12.5 inches, and I like this OFA, this OmniGrid, not OFA, OmniGrid ruler that happens to be 3 by 18. I find that I can cut 2.5 inch strips with this out of my scraps, because most of my scraps are going to be smaller than this, especially if I fold them in half once. Sometimes I find my 12.5 ruler is just a tad too short, and I love the 3-inch width on this. Just awesome with that. If I'm cutting down scraps, I tend to use, again, rulers that pertain to the size scraps that I'm cutting. So if I'm cutting 3-inch squares, I don't want to be using my 8.5 by 24-inch ruler. I want to use something that's more appropriate. This one happens to be a ruler by Quilting. Just trying to get the words in here for you. Quilting. And it happens to be 3 by 9. So a nice small ruler. And then I actually got this Creative Grid ruler from American Quilter Society one year, or every year when you go to any of the shows for AQS, they give you some kind of a gift. One year they gave us a rotary cutter. Another year they gave us these little rulers. And these rulers are 2.5 by 6.5. And they're really nice to do squaring up of your ends or cutting small pieces. And then I want to talk about squaring up rulers. I do have some of the Arteza brand rulers, but any of your square up rulers will work. I just didn't pull them all because I didn't want to pull every ruler out. But any of your square up rulers will work, and I do use these according to size. A lot of people will buy the 12.5-inch square up ruler, but I also have them in 4.5, 6.5, various different sizes, even a 15, and I even have a 24-inch square up ruler, because I want to use one that's a little bit bigger than the block I'm trying to square up. And then one of my favorites, which this happens to be my larger square up ruler, this will square up a 9-inch ruler, but this is the Quilting a Day. Trying to make sure I can get it. It's the same color as my hand. Hold on, maybe that's better. Quilting a Day square up ruler. And if I'm making half square triangles, I like using this ruler, and I have one that's in a 6-inch square as well. And the reason why I like this ruler is because you can square your half square triangles while they're still folded instead of when they're open. So therefore, you only have to make 2 side cuts instead of 4. And I like that very much. This is how I actually square up with my chain piecing half square triangles. I use this ruler and square up prior to pressing. And I got a few specialty rulers. If you don't get any other specialty ruler, get yourself a 60-degree triangle ruler. This one happens to be, I think, 12 inches tall. It's a clear view triangle, 60-degree triangle ruler. And I like using this because most of the time we make crumb blocks and string blocks, and I like to use this ruler to cut them into this shape, and then I can put them back together. So it's so versatile. You can also use this ruler when you're doing stack and whack. And you can cut 60-degree triangles with your standard ruler, but this just makes it so much faster. So I love my triangle ruler. Before I started doing a lot of rotary cutting, another ruler that I use is the June Taylor shape cut rulers. And mine is saran wrap, because when I travel and do lectures, I take this to class with me. And I have broken a few of these, so I saran wrap them before I travel with them, and I'm actually getting packed for my March lectures. But I love this. It's upside down, but I was trying to get you the words. Let me see. I was trying to get the words, which were on the side first, but they're not upright. But you actually have slots down through here, and I'm hoping you can see through this saran wrap. And if you don't have a die cutting system, this is such a lifesaver. You can stack your fabrics and cut a lot of pieces at one time really, really fast. And it's like a whole demo on just this ruler if I was really demonstrating how you use this ruler. So if you have never heard of this ruler, please look it up. If you don't have a die cutting system, and you can also buy it at Joann's and use a coupon. And then the last ruler that I'm going to share, I do have another ruler that I bought in Houston. I have not even used that system yet, so I can't recommend it yet. But this is one of the rulers that I purchased when I was on that trip in November. And I do have a link to this, or have this in my Amazon store. It is the Quilter Slide Lock. And what I like about this ruler is that it has holes down in the bottom, and then you push in, and these little gel dots pop up, and then they stick down to your mat, and your long ruler does not slip. Now, the way that they use this ruler, they use it in conjunction with your other rulers. So your other rulers, you're using it to get the measurements, and then you bump this up to it, and then you rotary cut the side. I only bought this ruler because I was looking for something to trim off my edges when the edge of my quilt on my long arm frame once I got through quilting. And that's why I purchased it. So I have not used it in the traditional method that they intended this to be used for. But when I saw it, I knew that this would be great because my thick quilt layers would sometimes shift under the ruler, and this has stopped all of that from happening. So I really love it for that. They have videos on I've seen on YouTube on how you can use this ruler, but I just use it that way, and I am in love with it. So if you've never seen of this or think it might work for you, pretty cool. And then once you press down, you can still walk your way down the ruler, and it still just stays in place. It doesn't move even when I'm walking down for the area that I'm cutting. So I'm going to go back through and get your ruler recommendations. I hope you all got some I haven't heard of. I got to go back down, see where I left off. I see Claire is asking about blades. Yes, you can put your blades in. We're going to be talking about rotary cutters next. Okay. So Diane says, I've had that happen on 2 of those iron cut mats. And she's talking about where the mats were curling from putting the heat on the other side. Susan says, I use Olga. Usually get them at Joann's when they have their 60% off coupon. And OS, I don't know if it's on sale. I think it's some kind of a typo. Only happens a couple times a year. I use the 18 by 24 and 24 by 36. So we're still talking about mats there. And Deborah, I think she's talking about, I don't know if she's talking about mats or rulers, but she says she has Olfa Fiskars and a cut and press June Taylor, which is great for traveling. So we know that one's a ruler. Angela 63 says, hi Angela. Remo says, I purchased rulers but also have gone to Lowe's and getting different sizes. I also have lines on grids. And she's saying that she goes to Lowe's and they cut plexiglass, I guess. They have cut sizes that you can already buy. And I find sometimes plexiglass can be expensive. I don't know if it's just in my area, but sometimes I find it very expensive. Francine says, now that's one I need to try, the Creative Ruler. They have a whole line brand on the Creative Ruler, and Joann's have quite a few of their brand in their store as well. So you can definitely get started and then get more of their specialty rulers later down the line. Laura says, I seen a 6x24 that is non-slip. It works great for not moving. Awesome tip. Pamela says, I like my 6x24 with the lip on it by OmniGrid. And that's another thing. I do have an OmniGrid ruler. I think it's OmniGrid. Hold on for just a second. Let me get it. Make sure it's the same brand. It's the Olifa. And this one is actually 36 inches. So this is the end. And it's about 4 inches and has a lip on it. So this is what she's talking about. And this lip, you can push it up to the edge of your rotary cutter, the edge of your fabric, and then it will help keep things straight. But I used to use this to do my quilt backings and things like that. And every once in a while, this is what I was squaring up my quilts with because it was longer than 24 inches. But I found, you know, that it was doing some kind of a slippage. But I still use it. I love it for cutting fabrics that when you fold in half, like your quilt backs or fold in quarters, it's still longer than 24 inches. So thank you for that tip. That was a good reminder that I forgot to pull that ruler out. My screen jumped on me again. Pamela said, oh, that was Pamela who had the lip ruler. We got Dawn Cunningham. She says, hello, everyone. We went out to eat and just got back. Hope it was good. Anna says, I like my 9.5 inch OmniGrid square when resizing 9.5 inch or smaller. Make squaring up blocks easy. Yes. Different, smaller size, not dealing with all the bulk. Bonita says that she uses the Orteza ruler, OmniGrid Mini, because this was the first brand I purchased when I started quilting in creative grids. She's got various sizes. Sandra, if you all don't read the chat box, please read the chat box because it has a plethora of information in the chat box. Sandra Weston says, I use Omni and Creative Grid rulers. I love the Creative Grid slotted ruler to cut strips. So Creative Grids now have a slotted ruler, I'm assuming, like the shape cut. I'm assuming that's what she's saying. Margaret Knox says she loves hers. Linda says, I probably have 25 different sizes of shape because I never quilted before and went crazy buying them all. Didn't know what I need. Christine says, totally forgot that I own the slotted ruler. Gotta get these tools out. When I didn't have my die cutting system, that ruler, I probably had purchased maybe 2 or 3 of those just before I had even gotten a die cutting system because I used it so much and I would cut through the slots because I was using it so much. And then I found that I was using some of the same slots a lot. And so then I started using masking tape and to move over a little bit to square up, like start cutting at my 1/2 inch mark instead of my 0 mark. And then I used masking tape so I wouldn't forget where I was cutting. But I really used those slotted rulers for a long time. Diane says, I have several rulers, all different sizes and names. And then Shakita's here. Hi, T. Hi, Shakita. She says, OmniGrid rulers. Joan Elkin says, I bought a block lock ruler, but it was way too expensive, would not waste money. I bought that and I just felt like for all the work and learning I had to do to use that tool, I bought like a 6.5 inch square up ruler. It's just not my favorite. It's just not for me. And I'm so old school. And if I have tools that I'm using that are working, I just tend to keep using those until I have a problem with them. But I just found that they were not for me. They are great. They got different ones that you can scrub flying geese and things like that. But I just decided not to invest more money into that because I wasn't using the one that I did purchase. But some people love them. So I'm not knocking that brand. It's just not for me right now. And I could change in 6 months and be in love with the ruler. So Margaret says, I put 2 dots of hot glue on the bottom of my ruler to keep it, to get it to stop that slipping. That's good too. You can also put your own sandpaper dots underneath or any of the various ruler grips on the bottom of your needles. I think even what's the name of that press mat I have? I can't remember the name of the press board that I use when I go to retreat, but it's that real flat one that has gray foam on it, kind of like a car top foam. But they also have grip dots in that same material. But it's so many things that you can do to put on your rulers. Don says, T, where are you teaching in March? I don't know. I don't have my schedule on on the wall. And I would have to move. I got my iPad right here in front of my big desktop, and I don't have those files open. But I know I'm going to St. Clair. That's one. A Gill in St. Clair, Missouri. And I can't remember the other one. And then I'm also going to IQF show where I'll be working, helping Fabrique sales. So, but I can't remember right now. I used to put them on my website, but it was just too much to keep updating it so much, and so I stopped. But they're all in the St. Louis area. They're not traveling outside. It's not like any overnight stay. So they're all like in Missouri counties. I don't think I have even any Illinois dates set right now. So all of my lectures from now through May are all Missouri based in Missouri counties. Not even St. Louis area. So let me go back, and I can't remember. I'm trying to find the last comment about where I'm teaching. Okay, so we got Joan Elkins next. She said, Margaret, that's a great idea with the hot glue. Don Cunningham said, like when Sprinter, I use mostly AccuQuilt and Sizzix dies. So we're going to talk about that. We'll do that next. I was going to talk about long arm supplies next month, but let's talk about the die cutting stuff so we can get that out the way next week. And then do give me some of your favorite die cutting dies. I don't know if I'm going to pull all of mine out because it would be just too much to put it all back up, but I will talk about some of the stuff. So that's what we'll do next week. And even if you use an electronic cutter, tell us which one you have. Tell us how you cut your fabric, that sort of thing, because I've never cut fabric on my electronic cutter yet. Deborah Richards says, T, I'm concerned about that plastic badge touching the metal light shade behind you. It's actually not, the shade is actually fabric, and it's a shade that's covering the light bulb, and the lights don't get hot. Because I was really surprised when my husband came in here one day and just pulled the light out. So if you get the right bulbs for your systems, they're not hot bulbs on this Gamble. They specifically use a special type of bulb so that they don't get hot. And Diana said, just pull out your favorites. I got a lot because I do a lot of die cutting. So I have to do a lot of just describing, I guess, because I got so many dies. It's just ridiculous. But I will talk about my favorite, actually, are your strip dies, because you can do so much with them. So, yeah. But thank you, Deborah. I appreciate that. But that thing's been hanging up there forever. And I think I put some stuff in there. I moved some stuff around. So, and it's not actually touching the light because there's like that ruler, that green ruler back there is actually touching the shade. And that's what everything is laying on. But like I said, it doesn't get hot, and the shade is fabric and it doesn't get hot. If the fabric shade got hot, it would all burn up. But Missy Fannin says, I have a cutter that has a crank, not electric. I've never used it yet, so thank you. Alrighty. She says she has a cutter and it has a crank. I wonder which one that is. Do you know what brand that is? And so now we're going to go ahead and talk about the rotary cutters. And I have So many rotary cutters, so many different brands, but I'm only going to talk about a few of them. Oh gosh. So, rotary cutters. When I first started, I bought the Ofa brand, but they were the straight handle, and they were all the 45, size 45 rotary cutters. And then as I started doing more and more, I realized that I like the 60-degree blade because the blade technically lasts longer because it's got more room to go around to cut. And so it goes over less fabric than this one does. And so I started using this because of the blade being bigger. It could also go through more layers of fabric a lot easier as well. So both of these have been good. I've been using these probably for my first 10 years of quilt making. But then, and I like the Arteza brand, or this style, not this, because this just came out a few years ago. And then I like the Arteza brand because if you have a problem with weight, this is the lightest rotary cutter I have ever held in my hand. And I didn't have to do a whole lot of excess pressing to get it to work, which was amazing to me that something this light would cut so well. This has just a little bit more weight to it. It is on the bigger side though. I didn't bring the smaller size of this, but I do love and have used the Ofa brand, I'm sorry, for so many years. And then I got into the ergonomics brand. And one thing I did like about them when they made it ergonomic is that if you were left-handed, your blade went on this side. And if you were right-handed, your blade went on this other side. So they paid attention to me being a lefty. And so I was kind of a diehard fan from there. Now, I will tell you that I have purchased the Mortelli brand. This one was given to me as a gift. And then I did purchase this one. These are both the left-handed models. They have a left-handed blade as well as a right-handed blade. Now, it's probably going to be real difficult to see in this video. They have this little plastic thing that goes in front of the blade that came on this rotary cutter. I'm not sure if I was supposed to take that out. I find that that rubs up against the rotary cutter on my on my ruler. So I don't like that. On the larger one, there isn't that plastic thing. So I'm not sure what the deal is with that. I do see that this has rust and I don't have many of my rotary cutters rusting, and I've only had this one less than a year. I bought this one last year at IQF, the end of March, or actually IQF last year was the first week of April. And so it's already got some rust things on it. Now, I'm not a person to, the rotary cutters are great, I'll say that, other than the things that I just showed you on it. But I don't like promoting companies that have poor customer service. So if you are loving Mortelli, that's great. I am not gonna tell you about that, but I've just had too many occasions where I've got bad customer service, did not get my sale prices that were quoted to me, and then because we're all so busy and happy and laughing at quilt shows, we don't realize that we didn't get our discounts until we get home. And so I'm just not a fan of a company that tells you what the sale is for the show and then they ring you up at regular price. That's my opinion. I hope no one is offended, but that's my take on Mortelli. So that's why I don't promote that company. Do I love the rotary cutter? Yes, except for when it's rubbing up against my ruler. And I don't like that it does have some kind of rusting going on with it. But I have friends that that's all that they use. I still mostly use my Ofa or ergonomic rotary cutter here. And I do use this one in my sewing room where I'm sitting, my Arteza, since I got it from them. I like to get different products to test them out. And Trying to go back to where I stopped. Okay, so I think we're at Judy Smith. She says, I got Fritz cutting mat from Missouri Star Quilt Company. Don't use it much. Are you talking Dritz or Fritz? I'm confused. And if it is, I just don't know what Fritz is. I'll have to look that company up. And then Diane says, I need to make a list of my rulers. Don't we all? Mary says, I bought 20-inch OmniGrid ruler because I heard people talking about it, but I can't imagine a block that size. And I have, that might be the size that I have for a square up ruler, but I have had to use it for when I'm doing like pillows that were 18.5 inches. It was just really nice to have that where I could lay it flat on. So that's the only time that I have been using it, is on that. But you could probably also square up smaller quilts with it as well. And Judy Smith says a Fritz mat. So Fritz must be a company. Thank you so much. Deborah says, do you use the dyes a lot? We'll talk about dyes next month. We will talk about dyes next month, and I will like make a list of those that I recommend people get. And I will tell you about my dye journey on how I started using my die cutting system, because buying a die cutting system and using one is two different things. So if I forget that, let me know next week if I forget to tell you about that. Linda says, I love my OFA ergonomics 45 and 60. So much better than Fiskars in my opinion. Okay. I haven't used Fiskars, or if I have, I may have like borrowed of friends and wasn't really paying attention, but I don't think I've used the Fiskars. Don says she uses OFA 45, learned the hard way to retract it when not using. Sliced my pinky finger once. It was deep and bled a lot. Ooh, I have had 2 incidents in my life with the rotary cutter and been at the ER both times. Rose says my favorite OFA cutter is the old straight handle 60mm. And they are great. They're good. Like I said, that's what I started with. I used them for 10 years. And I just got the ergonomic one because with me working as a research analyst, meaning that I'm typing all day, I just felt maybe I should switch over. I never had any pain from rotary cutting, but I just figured that I might need to switch over. So I do use the straight handles and the ergonomic ones. I use whichever rotary cutter is available to me at the moment. So I'm not real picky about those either. Bonita says, take a guess. Ginger. Laughing out loud. I didn't even know Ginger had a rotary cutter. But like I said, I'm not looking because I'm using the tools that I got. So I'm going to have to go do some research, Bonita. She says it has an ergonomic handle. I got a free pink OFA straight handle. I bought the man sewing shark cutter, but wasn't impressed when using the left-handed way for cutting. And that is my biggest pet peeve with people that come out with these tools and they really don't work for left-handed people. I have not bought that, had thought about it, and I just hadn't done the hard look at it to see if it would really work for left-handed people. But I have seen his videos and he uses it very well. Francine says, I like to use the Ortez 45mm also. I used a 45mm most. Funny, I went to a thrift shop today and there were 2 packages of 28mm blades for 50 cents. Wow, I would have bought them. Because I do use the millimeter blades when I'm trying to cut like freestyle curves or cutting around templates and stuff like that. Then I would use the smaller one because it will hug the template a lot better. Fiskars and OFAs, including 60 OFA safety. That's Diane. Yeah, because you have some rotary cutters that when you press down, the blade comes out, and then when you lift, the blade goes back in. And I think that's what she's talking about with the safety rotary cutters, just for those of you that are not aware that they exist. Linda says, I'm not offended, couldn't agree with you more. Thank you, Linda. Orna says, I cut myself bad with my rotary cutter. I learned never to cut across my other hand holding the ruler. Never, never. I have learned, like when I'm doing square ups, I have learned how to square up with my right hand and then do my other cuts with the left. So that's something that you all might want to practice, is learning how to use your least dominant hand for that first squaring up, so that way you don't have to flip your fabric around to start cutting your other pieces. I did learn that a long time ago. Has come in handy. Laura says she used 18 millimeter, 28 millimeter Fiskars, 45 millimeter Quilter Bear, 45 millimeter, and 60 millimeter OFAs. Okay. And then Diane says also pinking blade. Love it. I use my pinking blade when I don't want my fabric to fray, like when I did that fabric reef where you just cut strips that are approximately 1 inch by 6 inch or so, and you tie them onto a metal reef frame. I used my pinking blade so that I didn't have to worry about the fabric fraying, and it worked very well. So thanks, Diane, for that. Rose says, telling us your experience gives us wanting to watch for that when we go to shows. Yes, it does, because we're just having a great time, and they know it. The people know it, and you just depend on them to have integrity and be honest in their business, and everybody is not that way. And I don't like when I'm walking down an aisle and they're hollering and screaming at me to come into their booth. I'll just add that as well. Oh my gosh. Judy says she likes drits. Diane says she liked the handle on the Fiskars. Diane says she has a 20-inch Omni grid I use to square up a quilt. That's pretty cool. And you can get your corners really good with that as well. Peggy says, I just purchased a 20 1/2 square ruler for my 18 1/2 inch bear paw blocks. Yes, and that's what I do. I like my ruler to be just a little bit bigger than the block and not on the edge of the block, because sometimes you can't see if one end is not completely under, especially the bigger the ruler gets. So I do like to have mine just a little bit smaller. Sandra says, I have the 45 and 60, bought the 10-pack from Morteza, and the blades were dull. Wow. Now see, the blades that were in that I got with my Morteza, I have not even replaced this blade, and I've been using it since I did the show. And I've had other people that were saying the blades were great. So you're the first person that I've heard say the blades were dull. And I bet if you contact Morteza that they will take care of you. Or Arteza. I think that's how they say their name is, Arteza. But if you contact them, I'm sure they would take care of it, because they are highly into customer service. And tell them Teajuana Mahone sent you, just in case. But yes, I think if you bought something from them and it's not working, you should contact them, because I think they will try to make it right. And you are the first person that I've heard say that their blades were dull. Diane says, I have the Tula Pink rotary cutter. It's very heavy. I don't know what brand she went with when she did her rotary cutters. Don Cunningham says, Martelli SP charged me twice for same thing. Can't think what's called, used to free motion. Took a long time for them to reimburse me. Yeah. Miss Fanny says, I use a 45 millimeter rotary cutter, ergonomic. Not sure the brand. I bought some blades from Wish. They were cheap but sharp. That's a good idea. And you can also get 45 millimeter blades from Harbor Freight. I heard people say that those are good. Even if they don't last as long and you have to replace them, the price for them are so cheap that replacing them is not a big deal. And you should be replacing your blades anyway. I take my rotary cutters off. I clean them. I do have a video on how to clean your rotary cutters and stuff like that. So you can Google Teaquilts and rotary cutters, and that should come up. But you should be replacing your blades. They don't last forever. But when you put a new one in, it should cut like a sharp new blade. It should not be dull. Francine says, as sellers, they should be more considerate about making a conscious effort about how much money they're getting from customers. With all the excitement at the show, I guess they think you'll never realize it. And that's exactly what happened to me, because when I was at IQF last year, it was time for me to go. I was working with Fabric Teak, who I'm working with this year as well. And I just wanted to go make a quick sale while her shop didn't have as many people in it. And I knew I wasn't going to be at the show much longer. And once I left her show, I had to hit the highway. And so I ran over there to make the sale. I wasn't paying attention. I just handed her my credit card. She never told me what the amount was or anything like that. And so I just walked back out because I really didn't have a lot of time. So it was partly my fault because I wasn't paying attention. But like I said, if you told me 2 hours ago that these rotary cutters cost this amount of money, to me, they should be cheaper if it's the end of the show, or they should be the price that you quoted me. I shouldn't have to ask you another time, what's the price of your product? I think I should get the price that you quoted or that you said was your show special, which was not up on any kind of paperwork either. It wasn't on any kind of a stand or anything. It's just what she told me. I asked her, what is your show special today? And that's what she told me. So I just don't like it when it's shady like that. Pamela says, Ed Sandra, did you call their customer service? They usually stand by their products. See, somebody else. I recommend you most definitely contact them because they have a lot of YouTubers sponsoring their product. And if you're having difficulty with something, I did not order an extra pack of blades because mine came with my rotary cutter, the mat, and I got 2 extra blades. So I haven't even had to replace this one yet. So I most definitely recommend you going back and contacting Arteza. Judy says, I think my Ofra rotary cutter did cut better than my Fiskars. Eric's finally here, everybody. He says, hi, I'm late to the party. Yes, you are. Joan says, I love my Arteza. Love it because it's so lightweight. That's one of the things when I first touched it, I'm like, is this thing going to do anything? Is it going to crack? Is it? And so when I first got that rotary cutter, I made a conscious effort. Every work area that I went to when I cut, I took that rotary cutter with me because I really wanted to test it out before I did a video on it. And it works very well to me. I haven't had any problems. Like I said, I haven't had to even replace the blades. Pamela says, a lot of good info in this chat, so give T a thumbs up. Thank you, Pamela. You're so sweet. Rose says, I tried some of the blades from Harbor Freight, and they would not cut, but have heard other that have had were good. And the ones that I got in my St. Louis metro area, Harbor Freight, mines were good. They are not, as again, they're not going to be blades that last forever. And while we're on blades, I do not recommend rotary blade sharpeners. I purchased the little blue one you twist, and it didn't do anything. I know they've got other brands. I've been looking at reviews on rotary blade sharpeners, and no one is really happy with that. I just think at this point you need to continue to buy new blades. And I use my old housing to store my blades in, and then when it gets filled, I make sure I duct tape that before I put it into the trash, so I don't just put them into the trash either. Eric says, Martelli makes a good cutter, but bad customer service. And Christine was also saying, give me a thumbs up, guys. Thank you so much. Diane says, I put a drop of machine oil when I change my blades and they roll better. And yes, and I talk about all of that in the how to take care of your rotary cutters video that I uploaded. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. Orna says, did anyone buy a rotary blade sharpener? I've seen them and wondered if they work. Question was there, I didn't even know it. Christine says, sorry Pam, I just saw your message. Great minds think alike. And Diane says, I make them write down quotes and sign. I didn't think for a rotary cutter that it was that serious. Deborah Lovelace is here. She says, yay, I finally made it. We only got about a couple more minutes left, guys. I am going to end because my daughter is going to come over in a few I told her to come at 8:15 so I can be ready. Got a lot of people saying hi to each other. You know, when Eric comes in, everybody's got to give him his hellos. Rose says, I do the same thing with my old blades as far as storing them. And then I even, for my paper crafting, I even have one of my blades, and it's one of my very first ones, my straight 45mm OFA blades. I just have paper written on it, and then I'll put one of my old blades in there, and then I use it in my card making. There are times when you need to use a blade on paper. Deborah says, I'll watch it from the beginning tomorrow, so thankful for the good advice. Thank you. Hey, thank you, Deborah. I don't know if you say Deborah or Deborah. Joni says, I had that blue one and the True Cut electric. Neither of them work. Yes, because I was about to buy the electric cutter in Houston last year, and then I went and did some Googles on it, because everything we bought, Eric, Deborah, my friend Deborah Huey, and Eric, we went in on the first day just kind of looking, and then we did our homework and went back on the second day. So it just didn't seem like any of them worked. And this says, I like to use my old blades for paper cutting. Diane said Quilting Marine didn't like the blade sharpening either. Eric says, I feel the love, people. He's got a lot of people saying hi to him. That's sweet. And Diane's telling Joni to get AccuQuilt. I must have missed something. Pamela says, I have a sharpener, also didn't work. And then Eric Oda says, anyone using a pinking rotary blade? And yes, we talked about that, Eric. I mostly use it when I'm just trimming fabric that I don't want to pink. And I was telling him where I had used it on a reef, where I was cutting 1 by 6-inch pieces that I was tying onto one of the metal reef frames to make a fabric covered reef. And it works very well. They are 2 years old and it still has no frame, so they work very well. Bonita says, I bought the electric rotary blade sharpener. It worked a little. Didn't return it to the same sharpness as the original. And then Eric is asking Diane what brand. June Hansen says, I have one, but it takes training to use it. And Eric's asking, does it work good? And Diane said Fiskars, I think. And June is saying, yes, it does. In Andre Banks says, my blade is dull, but I'm too lazy to change it. It only takes a minute. And you might need a cloth to wipe it, because if you haven't changed your blade in a while, it's going to be a lot of debris and you're going to need some oil. And Sandra says, blade sharpeners didn't work. Sharpener is True Sharp 2. And I think that's the brand of the new ruler system that I was going to try out. Let me see. Because they were trying to sell me one and I almost bought it, but I didn't. True Cut. This company has one. True Cut. This is from Houston last November that I haven't done a review on yet. So it hasn't even come out of the package. So I do have to look at that system. So I can't recommend it until I use it. Yes, it's from Grace Company. And that was, they also had a sharpener because they had a whole kit. And I also bought the sharpener. But when I went and read the reviews on it, it was just horrible. So I did not do that. So that's all that I have today. Just making sure I didn't miss anything on my long arm table back there. Do note that I have a different quilt on my frame. I actually have the backing on my frame. And I am actually quilting the second quilt for the charity projects. I have this backing here, was big enough that I could put 2 quilts on at one time, so that's what that is. I decided to go ahead and use this thick polyester batting that I got with my machine that I've been just holding on to. I need to do something with it. And I didn't want to just put it into the landfill because I don't really use polyester batting. But something different is there. Now I just got to hand sew all the binding around the edge of the quilt, which I'll do when I go to meetings or people's homes, because I don't like to do that at home, so it'll be easier for me to do that when I'm out. I don't have to take my sewing machine. So that is it for me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next week with die cutting, either electronic or your Teaquilts, Sizzix, whatever brand of die cutting systems that you're using. If you use an electronic cutter, please come with measurements like what is your cut depth, how do you back your material, which type of cutting mat, because I know you can use different cutting mats in the electronic cutting machines. So give us the details, so if we want to try it, we can be ready to use it without any issues. So and Eric just saying that he ended up buying that, and I still got it in a wrapper that he says he love it. I haven't even pulled it out yet, but I'm hoping that I'm gonna love it because it's got that tracking system. So I will get it out soon. I'll do some test cuts with it, and then I'll try to do a video on that. So thank you. So thanks everybody. I'm just trying to make sure I didn't miss anything. And I will see you all next week.